Hello and welcome to what should finally be episode 4 of the Rick Chappell podcast, if this one works. I say that because I have attempted somewhere around 4 times, ironically enough, to record this week's episode. I say this week with a chuckle because it's been way more than a week since the last one. Let's get into why. Of the 4 that I attempted to do, let's turn the goo down a little bit there. I did one on Twitch live. I recorded one that got glitchy. Just camera failed. The lighting kind of had an issue. It just didn't go well. I thought it was an audio only one, and then I realized there was audio glitches too. So it wasn't an audio only one. After that, I did one on YouTube Live that didn't have sound at one point. I think I will go back to YouTube Live for the, it's my fault. I'll go back to YouTube Live for the Song in a Day streams when I start those back up. But those are coming down the line. The last one I tried to record, though, wasn't live on YouTube. It was just here, and I don't even remember what failed that time. But it was late at night, and I was done. It's also already getting warm, so we're turning on the air conditioning. You have to live with a little bit of background noise, but I get to thrive and stay alive, so is what it is. Oh, that's what went wrong. I had the air conditioner on, and my amplifier, and all the lights and cameras and whatnot. And it turns out I can't have the air conditioner and my amplifier on. I thought because it had a little bit of a grounding hum. Then I got rid of that. Then it blew the breaker. So we just won't use my amp in the summer at home. Which is fine. I've gotten by just fine with my Axe effects for years. You're hearing it now. It sounds great. As always, this is the Axe effects, and then the infinite creepiness is my laptop doing some Logic Pro delays and funness. Ugh. But after the live fails and the computer fails, I figure an episode weekly in the summer with some air conditioning noise is the best thing I think I can accomplish. So, without further ado, this is finally episode 4, I guess, eh? What's been going down? What are some of the other reasons it's been so long, man? It's because I went to Ontario. That's one thing. Went across my good old country of Canada here. I was supposed to go to Toronto. Was kind of how it was sold to me. But I've never been to Toronto to this day still. I went to Ajax, which is kind of... if I was supposed to go to Vancouver, kind of went to Chilliwack, you know? Like it was sort of its own thing. Maybe Abbotsford, ironically enough. No, we have our own airport. Chilliwack. Anyways, I'm going to be careful how I talk about it, because it was a work trip. I didn't pay for it, so you can't complain for a free trip ever, right? But I won't do it again, is the gist of it, because I'm a fan of British Columbia through and through. Let's just put it that way. I also think I may have developed at some point over the pandemic a fear of flying. Don't know why. I had a great flight to and from, no complaints, no issues. But the morning, so I was supposed to go to Ontario a couple months ago. And the morning of, I felt super sick, and I was like, this is a bad idea. Like, I'm puking, this is bad. So I didn't go. And then a couple of months later, or a month later, they were like, hey, we can book you again. And I was like, haven't been sick since, let's do it. And then at like 3 a.m., my flight left at like 8, nothing wild. At like 3 a.m., I woke up and got violently ill. And I was like, this is related, I think, then. So I then got on the plane, or when I woke up again, I was not afraid. We got in my Uber, we went to the airport, all was great. But I guess there were some jitters since COVID, maybe? I don't know. I've flown before COVID. It's been since then, since I was at an airport and did all that fun stuff, you know? Or no, I've been to an airport since. But you know what I mean. I haven't flown. So, hopefully my great flights, because what I can say about my Ontario trip is I flew with Swoop, and no complaints, man. They're cheap, I think, but yeah, man. The flight back, I did have the classic crying baby shenanigan, but that's nobody's real fault, you know? It's just a thing that happens. Sorry, I realized I didn't have one of my goopy echo things on that I enjoy so much. The guitar this week, if you haven't noticed just yet, is this Framus Stormbender. This is a 2016/2017 master-built prototype. I've learned some new stuff about it that we'll get into a little later, because I actually wrote down a plan for this podcast. So hopefully it flows a little better than the ones I've done in the past. But this Stormbender is the guitar we're listening to this week, because I've been using it today especially to get working on guitars for the new record. This has multiple voicings in it, so we're on like a single coil mode right now. There's also a humbucker, and then I call it kill mode, which is very much like an active humbucker. Full distortion, tons of pick attack. I'm playing with my fingers, but if we crank up the pick, this guitar can do basically everything, which is why I love it so much, and it is on everything I ever record, because it's in tune, because of the good old Evertune, and a guitar that's in tune is the one that you should use, is my opinion. So I also have my good old Strat that I've now modified with the Evertune in it, that I've already done an episode with that. It may have been number 1 or the last one. I believe it was episode 3. Feels like literally ages ago because of all of the failed attempts. I've sat in this chair and said, this is episode 4, for like a month and a half now. So forgive me if it comes across as a little ungenuine, because it doesn't feel like episode 4 anymore, folks. But I'm trying to get back on the schedule of actually, you know, achieving the podcast goal of once a week, which is the bare minimum to say you have one, which is why everybody has a podcast, right? No, as always, I will let you know, this is just a shameless plug of my original music. The goal is you stumble upon this while watching my other YouTube things and find a song of mine that you like, because you like listening to me blab and play guitar, and you go, well, you know, I think the blabbing is a little much, but the guitar is pretty cool if he did his best stuff and then like put great drums and orchestras and stuff behind it. And then you've just described one of my CDs that you could purchase at www.rickchappell.com for the low price of $10 Canadian, which in your currency, wherever that may be, is probably a joke. So you can buy it on iTunes or stream it anywhere for free also. The last record I did, Black Tie Affair, came out in January. We're getting ADHD and doing a promo for it because I haven't done much promotion for it. And January is pretty long ago, but not when it comes to actually releasing an album. Releasing? You heard me right. Go stream it, is the gist of it. Look up Rick Chappell, or just look up Black Tie Affair. Or just look up the song London Fog, because that's the one that people actually like the most. But there's a lot of good songs on it, so there's your plug. Let's go back to Ontario for a second. So yeah, I didn't go to Toronto. I went to Ajax, was where my hotel was. And then at Ajax, I then traveled to Pickering, Ontario for some work training or whatever. So I sat in a conference room and got talked at. Could have been an email. Anyways, moving on. The flight to and fro was really nice, partially because good old Devin Townsend, who designed this guitar, released the day of my flight, or the day before, I think, like 8 hours of ambient music or something crazy like that, like just albums worth of it on YouTube. So I quickly pirated it all and downloaded it to my phone so I could listen without data and listen to that for most of the plane. I read a book like a grown-up, but the book was the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy novel, so it's not really that grown-up, more of a adolescent thing. But I love those books, so keep them coming. Nobody, because he's dead and the series is far over. But the movies would be nice if they kept those going. Just saying. That wraps up all I would like to say about Ontario. I had a note here to mention the hotel, but we're not going to do that. When I got back, I immediately got to work again on my cover of Home Nucleonics. I say mine, I should say ours, because it was a collaboration with Marcel from Germany there, who I keep calling Marcel Webb because that's his Instagram name, or Marcel Weeb. But it turns out his name's like Marcel, not Leck. He told me once finally. It's something German. And I read his Instagram name every time I talk to him. So that's my excuse for why I'm so bad at naming people correctly. There's also a Marcel I work with, so there's too many Marcels in the world, man. Y'all gotta get together, and one of you should be M. I should just call you M. The drummer, M, the teenager from Germany, crushed Home Nucleonics by Strapping Young Lad. It was the first thing him and I actually ever worked together on, funny enough. I saw him on Instagram play Oh My Fucking God, I think. And he crushed it, but it was on like a phone microphone. So I was like, oh, that's really good, but do you have more mics? And he was like, oh, I just got an interface. And I was like, dude, what do you want to do? And Home Nucleonics happened. So he sent me those drums literally back in 2020. Like, this was a long-term one, man. This is one of the ones I procrastinated while my teeth fell out of my head and all that fun stuff that happened during the pandemic. Whoa. Anyways, when we finally got around to it there, I finished up the vocals, put a good mix on it, I think, and filmed it and put it on YouTube. So you can go check that out as well. That's Home Nucleonics by Strapping Young Lad. The bass guitar I used in that was the first thing I ever did with that bass guitar. And the reason it had to be that bass was that bass guitar was owned by the mighty Byron Stroud from Strapping Young Lad. So, that's a neat story in and of itself. I went to a mall. This was actually right before COVID again. This was the end of 2019. Went to a mall out in New West, I think it was, just to meet a guy from Craigslist who was selling the bass guitar. A guy named Corey. He's a mutual friends of a few of my friends, actually. It's a small, small world. He's played guitar on all the Trail Light records, as far as I remember, or a good chunk of the Trail Light records. That's with Omar, the guy. Omar. Oh, he was mad last time I said that. No, it was Omar. I called him wrong. Omar. His name's Omar. Wow. See? Rick with the names. Trail Light, Omar's band. Corey plays guitar in it, and I bought the bass from him. And it's amazing. I finally got the strings I love kind of set up with it, so I've used it for the last 2 months to record bass for the new record, which is the thread we're going to keep weaving through this podcast. The new record's nothing like Strapping Young Lad, that's for sure. But it was cool to do a heavy metal, like super heavy metal thing in the middle of working on these more gentle things. Because variety, you know? The Byron bass is so good though, man. It's so good that I've actually decided to sell my Dingwall, because I used my Dingwall for open C bass guitar with some fancy big strings on it, and then the Byron bass for open C with a low G, you know, for 5 string, 7 string stuff. And then I picked up a Fender bass, it's not here just yet, that matches my Evertune Strat, like they're the exact same color. So I was like, oh, that's just a great pair for standard tuning stuff. But then I realized I had 2 basses that were both doing, 4 of the same notes with the open C Dingwall and the open C 5-string ESP. that when I got the strings set up and the tone sort of dialed in on the ESP, finally the way I really liked it, I was like, this dingwall is superfluous. And they are a pricier bass, so having one superfluously is silly. So if you know anybody that wants a dingwall, I'm selling an NG2 in black, the heaviest of metal kinds. The new bass that I haven't got here just yet, I actually rented from my work for a month. That way I could use it to record the bass for the record. Because that's one of the projects I've been doing over the last month here. Or 2 months ago, I locked down all the drums for it, basically. And then a month ago, I did all the bass. I've been trying to take my time with it and not get obsessed or anything, but still do a good job. You know, your best job. So I rented that bass guitar and recorded all the standard tune stuff with it already for the new record Outlier. And there's only one song left to do on bass. My chart's over there, so I keep looking at it. But I need to borrow a bass guitar from a friend of mine who also might play violin and some real strings on the record, so that'd be cool. I'll find out this Thursday if we finally get some time to do that. I'm really looking forward to the bass guitars, especially. It's one of those Hofners, and there's a song on the record that I think has sort of that Paul McCartney bass vibe. The song's not that Beatlesy, but the bass line I came up with is a little bit more on the melodious fun side. So why not use a really dull Hofner to make it sound the way I think it should? Also, my friend has one, so I can just borrow it for free. So that's the main motive for wanting one, right? If you get the opportunity, take advantage. What else have I been working on lately? Oh, when I did the drums, so I should explain. Doing the drums for me isn't involving a drum kit at any moment. I can't play the drums. I can play them very poorly, but I don't play them on my own records, let's put it that way, or in front of people, or really ever. So what I do is I program them all. You just use the computer and you go boom, boom, click with your mouse, and then you work really incessantly at it and try to make it sound like a people. And I always arguably pull that off. I don't think the last record sounded like a human, but I think it had a good vibe to it. This one's a lot more human, but it definitely has more vibe to it. And part of why that is I did play some percussion. And by that I mean, in the table over there, there's a little maraca thing, vibra slap, and a tambourine. So when you hear those, they're not digital. It's me standing there with a microphone going and that does help give it a lot more of that human sort of swing, because I'm a people. And I'm not very good at those things, so I had to digitally edit them sometimes to make me sound like a good people. But it still sounds a lot more human than using Superior Drummer on everything, which is what I've done forever. So that's part of what's gonna try to make this record sound like a record. I don't know if that sentence made any sense, but in my head it did. I don't know the point of view of a podcast all the time. Am I always talking at you, or am I really letting you in the brain? Who knows? What's up next there? The percussion stuff turned out really well, though. It's mostly, I'm trying not to overdo it. I'm trying to use it as like headphone candy. So if you listen to the songs with headphones, you'll notice there's like tambourines going, you know, in different ears sometimes. They're always just like real background-y little things. At least that's what they're supposed to be. I think. We're not mixing the record just yet. Oh, okay. So my Ontario trip wasn't great, but I did do another trip that was far better that I can talk about on here for great length, maybe. We'll see. I'm not the best at that part yet. I went to Hedley, BC. That was not my initial plan as far as I was aware. But I ended up in Hedley, BC, and it was really fun. So, talking about that, I went to my buddy's house up in Princeton. So, my friend Justin has a band. Every once in a while when they do a show, he'll ask me to come up there and do sound, or if another friend of mine's band is also playing with them, I'll be like, oh, that's definitely worth making the trip then. You know, a double bill of my friends is worth a road trip. And I had some time off at work already planned before the Ontario trip. And then after the Ontario trip, I was like, I definitely want a real vacation. So, lined up great. Anyways, I whipped out of here. I took my car, which I very rarely drive. I don't commute to and from work in my car. I just walk because it's right around the corner. So putting miles on my car is always fun. I have a little Chevy sports car, so who wouldn't enjoy driving that up a canyon, right? It's not much of a canyon. It's just a beautiful highway here in BC. Again, just not something I saw in Ontario. So I whipped up to Princeton. Whipped up to Princeton. Made it to my buddy's house long before he was off work, so I just let myself into his house and drank beer on his patio and played guitar. Then he came home, we had pizza, it was a great time. He had a band practice, I took a nap. I'm not in that band, so I'm not in any of his bands. But I had no need to be in practice, so I fell asleep after a day of day drinking, after baking myself up in the sun, you know. Then he let me know the next day that the show was not in Princeton, it was out in Hedley. So we were actually hooked up with a campground and a trailer, which was awesome. So this was glamping, not camping. I mean, everything but Wi-Fi, full power, bathroom, you name it. The trailer had slides. It was half the size of my condo. Beautiful. I slept on a couch and seriously kinked my neck, I believe. Still dealing with that. Hooray for getting older and having a broke-ass neck. Literally. Oh, I gotta do my exercises better. That's the lesson I'm taking away. But also, when we got to the campground, I realized, this is all planned out without my knowledge, and that's fine, that it was a bachelor party as well. Another friend of his, or one of his coworkers, was camping with all of his buddies, so we had all them up there. They were there for the show as well. So we were all out in the river hanging out. I got towed through the river on a goose because I can't swim. So I had a great time, not gonna lie. I'm still a little bit burnt. I bought this Wham t-shirt. Went to a music store up in Penticton, I think. Yeah, Penticton, called Wentworth. And it was great. They had some really cool stuff. Even a Dingwall, like I'm selling. Buy it, please. But the only thing I bought was a shirt. I wasn't about to buy another guitar. Part of why I wasn't about to buy another guitar was I brought a guitar with me. A guitar I tried to film in Ep.4 with. A Murphy Lab 1958 Explorer. Good Lord, no. 1958 Les Paul. Murphy. Just a beautiful bourbon burst. I rented it from my work again. I'm big into that right now. But I just do that before I buy them to make sure I really want to buy it. And I really want to buy that guitar. So I'm probably going to rent it for another month here when I do a couple of the solos by the end of this record. Or I'll keep using my regular Les Paul. That's what I did today. It sounded great. Who knows? Money. Who can't just throw another Murphy Lab on the credit card, you know? No, not another. I've never done that. Oh, hey, Kev. What's up, sweetie? Every time I went away, when I would come back, or I should explain. When I leave, I have somebody here to make sure the cats are okay and whatnot. Because you can leave a kitten alone for a couple days, but I have a paralyzed cat who needs some special attention and whatnot. So why not just have somebody make sure I don't get robbed? And don't walk on the keyboard, sweetie. Come on. You're going to make noise or cause problems. You know that. You really don't care. You really don't care. If you weren't so cute, man. The best co-host I could ever ask for. Other than like Joe Rogan if I wanted income and streams. What do you see? There, she's attacking the shadow of the headstock. Oh, guitar picks? Is it guitar pick attack time? I'll try to get her to actually be entertaining on camera. That's always a fun part. Hello. What's going on? You got plenty of food. You got plenty of water. Sorry, the cat is a total and complete distraction from an entertaining podcast. Unless you are entertained by her, which I am. I don't have that Murphy lap here right now, though, because my rental expired. So I brought it back. I'm definitely buying it, though. That's for sure happening. What else can we talk about? Today I was working on the Outlier guitars, finally. That's that new record of mine that we're going to shamelessly promote on every single media platform I'm available on, which is Spotify, YouTube, Apple Music, my own website, www.rickchappell.com. All those great things. They are going well. There's your summary. No, I did 2 songs today. What did I do? I did the first song and one of the last songs just because they sound similar, so same guitar tones. I used the good old Stormbender, burp, and my Evertune Strat. It's an Evertune album. Everything's Evertuned. That's the whole point, right? But there's also blends. I have all the demos still, obviously, and I'm just using the demos to make the finals. So if the guitars on the demos are good, I'll keep them. And there's some cool guitars that I don't own anymore on there. So there's that old Mustang, which was on episode 0. I think it's a 1967. I don't own that. I sold that because I couldn't afford to keep it. It was a great guitar, but I got my songs out of it, I thought. So I let it go. And it's still on the record, thankfully. It was in tune, so that's on the first track. We'll do a breakdown of all those when that finally comes out. We're not going to talk about that hotel, right? No, we X that out. The long short of Ajax, Ontario is don't go there. Oh, I did learn that Sum 41, that's it. Sum 41 came from Ajax, Ontario. There's your last mention. The guitars for Outlier are done, though. Done for the day. Tomorrow I have 2 more songs to do. Not the guitars aren't done. They're done for the day. And tomorrow I will do the, what are the next 2 I was going to do? I planned this out. You don't know the names of them yet, so it doesn't matter. There's a jazz song that I think the old guitars are great on, but I'll do a few more rhythms. And then there's a little bit of a heavier ballad thing. Kind of Nothing Else Matters-esque. I think one of these songs has that sort of vibe. And I'm going to record that one tomorrow finally on guitars. That song has been around since before... No. I wrote that song the day the Skittles EP came out. Or the day I finished it. It was the day I showed it to the person, or the people, that the Skittles EP was about. I came home after that experience and was like, here's another song. So I wrote that, well, I won't tell you which song. You'll probably figure it out by the time you hear it. But it's a good song on the record. That will get touched up tomorrow. We'll make sure the guitars are all in tune and in time and not, full of background buzzes or pick scrapes and finger noises. The joys of listening to yourself over and over and over again. Those that have recorded must know. It's a special kind of egotistical hell you have to go through. But we're rocking our way through. Oh, one of the last things I wanted to mention about Princeton was my friends Sarah and Justin are now Sarah, Justin, a bunch of boys. They've always had a bunch of kids. Hendrik, Theo, what's the other one's name? There's so many. Hendrik, Theo, Mac, and their newest daughter. They finally had a daughter. Shout out to Daphne. There we go. Haven't met that little one yet, but there's finally a girl in that house, so good for them. Moving on to YouTube things. I have gotten going with gear reviews, finally. So I've done a bunch of them since the podcast because of all the non-podcast podcasts that have happened. The first one I did was Lewitt microphones. I rented, or no, I get to borrow them for free if I make the video. So I had the cheapest little Lewitt and then a mid-range Lewitt just to compare. And they're pretty good little cheap microphones. So check that out if you're interested in mics. The reviews that I will probably do more of are guitar pedals because those are far easier for me just to quickly plug in and play guitar through. I did 2 Universal Audio ones so far. The 55 Woodrow and the, was it 63 Ruby? The Ruby video was really good, I thought. It turned out better than the 55 just because the second one's better. I still need to rent the third one of the kit, the 65 Dream, I think it is. But while making these videos, we sold that one. So I can't do it until we get another one at my store. As soon as we do, I'll do the video though. Don't worry about that. And then I think I'm going to compare it up against like the Strymon Iridium. Well, not against, but the next videos I do, so you can compare for yourself, will be the Strymon Iridium and the Boss IR200. Because those are pedals that also do a similar thing to what the other Universal Audio ones do. When I do those, I just plug them right into my interface though, so you don't have to use all the rack gear and echo pedals and whatnot to make them sound good, because the whole point is if you just have that, what does it do? I burned through way more of my topics faster than I thought I would, because that's how I roll. And this is only episode 4, even though it may be the upwards of 10th video I've attempted to make. I'm fighting the urge to stop at this half-hour mark and then just start again. That way I'm guaranteed this part will work, but I need to be sure that all of this stuff will run for a couple hours on end if I'm going to do another one of those song in a days. I don't know why things started to fail on me when they did. You can watch it for yourself if you were so inclined. The last song in a day live stream is called The First Fail, because it ends just by like the thing crapping out. The computer goes dead basically. And yeah, just hoping that doesn't happen again. Have no plan. Or solution. You know, it's hard to come up with a solution to a problem that you're not too sure why or what the cause is. I think it's running all these programs, but I tried to separate it onto 2 computers to make it not happen. Just goes to show that there is no easy mode for this stuff. It's always a fight with technology. Woo! Okay, you know what I should talk about? I should talk about this Stormbender, because there is a story and a half in this thing. I got this in 2019, like many of the things we talked about so far. I settled with ICBC after a big old car crash that left me with a dent and all those teeth that fell out and whatnot. And I was like, I'm treating myself to a guitar. This was it. A friend of mine was selling this, so I was aware of a good deal on one kind of popping up. And I reached out and I was like, hey man, I'm ready to go. And I got it for a great deal. I can confirm it's a great deal because there is one on Reverb right now. One of 7, which we will get to later. 7 of these in the world. That is on Reverb for a lot more than I paid. A lot more. But kind of what I thought it was worth, so good sign. Anyways, this guitar has a story long before it met me, and we'll start with that. It was built in the Framus factory in Germany. It's a master-built guitar. It is, I call it a Stormbender prototype because it's the smaller version of a Stormbender, a 24 3/4 scale, and a slightly smaller body than the one that is available. It's just a 25.5 and a little chunkier. I love this guitar though, don't get me wrong. The chances of me buying a real Stormbender or a new Stormbender are slim to none ever, because why? And this one scratches that itch without fail though. It was built in Germany Then it was sent to America to their distribution team. Now, here's where the story gets a little patchy, and I can't claim all of this to be 100% true, but it's how I understand it. It was stolen by an employee or an ex-employee, and then made its way through a list of characters that who knows what part of that you can never believe, until it finally made it to a friend of mine whom tried to contact Framus, and did contact Framus, to say, hey, I got this guitar. I got no COA, though. Could I get one? And it's having like a small charging problem. And they went, oh, here's how you fix the charging thing. Here's the parts for it. But no, you can't get a COA because that guitar doesn't exist because it was a stolen thing, yada, yada, yada. You can keep it, though. Don't worry. That's not like stolen property to such an extent that, you know, you need to send it back or you were screwed out or anything. Insurance settled it. All is fine. But can you please let us know where you bought it? Send us the PayPal address. You know, we're still kind of... You've started to crack a code with us, you know? So we did that. And then I think a year later, he reached out to Framus again because he emailed the CEO just to be like, hey, I tried before, but, you know, I got those parts in it. It's working great. Love it. I'm thinking about selling it. Is there any chance I could get that COA? And at that point, the CEO reached out, and these emails I have, to be like, no, so that guitar will never get a COA. It's not happening. It won't happen ever. But the person my friend initially emailed at Framus was part of the theft team. So I don't know what happened there, man. The whole team went crazy. Maybe it was pandemic related. Maybe it was pre-pandemic. I don't know. But this is the hottest Stormbender around. Ah! I now know, finally, that there are 7 of these, and I'll get to that right now. There's another one on Reverb that has a COA. So this is a Devin Townsend Stormbender prototype, which makes it a little different in a few ways. It doesn't have the LEDs in it, and like I said, it's a little bit smaller. And let's see here. The other one on Reverb has a great description, so I'm just going to read it to you. Technically, the guitar was never sold to the public. It was scooped up by an employee from Framus' former USA distribution team. This is the one they're talking about. It remained in his possession until just now. 7 years old, which checks to this one. Oh, this is the one but talking about playware. We want to talk about how many of these there are. There we go. 1 of 7 over the last 7 years. Super rich. Oh, no. I thought there was more specs. Well, I know the specs of this guitar, and I don't feel like rattling them off. Anyways, the fact that there's another one on Reverb right now really excited me, because it finally informed me that there was 7. I've never been told that before, and that is very cool. I don't know how many of them. I should correct that. None of the ones without LEDs ever made it to Devin Townsend, as far as I'm aware. So all of these 7 were for either very demanding clientele, aka people that called them immediately and were like, hey, I want one this year, make it happen, here's a blank check, or prototypes that made its way to staff members. This one I will make a complaint about. It's a prototype, so I don't think this should knock anybody's opinion of Framus or the new Stormbenders. It's turning gray like an old person. The finish is, by that I mean, it's if you know about black guitars, sometimes they get cloudy over time, and this one's getting a little bit cloudy. So I might have it cut polished one day, who knows. But for now, it still looks great, sounds great, plays great. It's just not quite as high contrast as it used to be. The matte parts are the same color, though. That'll never change. They actually haven't even really shined up over the years. There's a little bit from, you know, the volume knob, but not as much as you'd expect. So that's not really much of a complaint. There you go. The pickups on this thing, though, are the real treasure nowadays. Now that I have more guitars with an Evertune, because having that kill mode, it's just instant crazy distortion, and then you can lighten right up. one more thing I'll mention about Ontario is actually about BC, and that's on the plane back. I knew I made the right call by living in BC, sure, which I have my whole life, wasn't really my call, but by continuing to live in BC, I should say, because you hear people that have never been here before when you're on a plane, and as soon as you leave Alberta and you cross into BC and you hit them good old Rocky Mountains, which, yes, Alberta has a couple, but come on, you know where the girth is at. It's BC. And all those mountains, everybody's jaw drops. And it's just the most beautiful thing ever, man. That was another part of going to Hedley and Princeton, was driving through those mountains I had just flown over. They are beautiful from all angles, man. You can hike them if you're sadistic and you like making yourself sweat outside. Or you can drive a sports car through the best paved sections of them. Or you can burn rocket fuel through the sky and go somewhere that's not as nice. And that is not what I choose to do as often as humanly possible. At least that's the conclusion I came to from my time in Ontario. There, I hadn't played guitar in a little while, so why not get that going again? You got Gargoyle Kevin hanging out in the corner. Oh, I can talk about what's right underneath Kevin. You can't really see, but there's a new microphone preamp. Big whoop, can't hear it right now. It's not for this microphone. But I purchased a really fancy Rupert Neve Newton channel for my warm audio microphone to record vocals for the new record, which I might try to swing a new mic by the time vocals come around, which is probably next month or the month after that, worst case scenario. It'll all depend on if I can fix this muscle in my neck that's just killing me. I need to rest that up by not blabbing like this more than the bare minimum, which means I should wrap this up at an hour mark for sure this week. But the microphone pre, I haven't even tested it out, honestly. It's the Newton channel. It has the pre, the EQ, the compressor, the silk, all the things I wanted in a one-unit rack, which I thought I would put right on my desk. But it turns out I don't sing here, I sing there, and I play synth here, and my synth was there. So I moved those around today, and I remembered that I needed to buy some patch cables that I didn't buy at work the other day. So gonna nickel and dime myself apart and buy more patch cables and strings and all those things after the long weekend. You can never have too many of those, but you always buy too many, it feels like, man. They're not inflating as bad as like some groceries, but I definitely notice that I am spending a lot of money on those, it feels like. Part of that is because I'm recording the new record, so I bought guitar strings and bass strings for everything in the past month because, well, not everything, but all the basses I own, all two, and 2 or 3 of the guitars I own, because if I'm going to record them for the record, it's new string time. That's why I do it all in a month, hopefully, as I can get that fresh string sound for everything for that month. Really, the new strings last about 2 weeks, so I'm aiming to do all the guitars in about 2 weeks. But there are 2 tunings on the record, so I will restring this guitar and maybe the other one, and that'll get me another fresh set when it's time to swap tunings. So the whole record will have that crisp, pick attack that you can only get with fresh strings and really aggressive picks, in my opinion. Picking. There's nothing that aggressive about a triangle, except for the fact that it's a very strong shape. Now that's the pyramid. But also a triangle. Pyramid's just a lot of triangles, right? And a square. Geometry with Rick Chappell. Up next, Geometry wasn't on the list. I'm not going to check it off like it was done, but the gear reviews were the last thing I was going to write. Oh, let's talk about Kevin for a second, because Kevin hated while I was gone. I was mentioning this earlier, and I never got to the end of it. So when I get back after being gone, Kevin doesn't come out to visit the people who stay here when I'm gone. Kevin hides, because Kevin is a fraidy cat. So when I come home, there is probably 2 to 3 hours of me doing whatever I'm doing, whether it's laying in bed or unpacking a bag or whatever, where Kevin will hide in another room and meow. And then Kevin will slowly come out of where she's hiding while meowing. And I can't go find her because she'll just go back to hiding. But if I am eventually quiet and still enough, she will meow her way into the room I'm in, sort of confirm I'm me, and then glue herself to me. So that's when usually she's far more affectionate than she is right now. But that's when the infection gets turned up to 11. It's the most adorable thing ever. And I definitely miss her when I'm gone, but she clearly misses me like the same, if not more. Probably because I feed her and stole her from a field. So I am her entire reason for survival, which I think forms a bit of a trauma bond, you know? You just traumatize animals and trap them in your home, and that's how you get pets, right? I think one of my friends literally just did that with a cat. Like a neighborhood cat wandered in, and she was like, okay, always wanted one of you. Go, Nicole. Oh, there was a lick in one of the songs I was working on today that I got to show you. It was a bitch, and I didn't play it right most of the time. It was... No. I should probably remember it. Da-dee. Something like that. It was cool because it had a fifth in it that was inverted. That was it. And it had a harmony. Or something like that. You'll hear it when the record's done, man. Because it's on the record. That song was Groundhog Day, which you've already heard if you've watched the Song in a Day live streams, because I wrote it live on camera. Part of why it had to go on the record was because I did that, I thought. And also, it was a good tune. There's actually 2 songs from the Song in a Day live streams that have made the record so far. I axed one that I wrote years ago because I never really finished it and I didn't feel like finishing it. And then picked a couple of the songs from more recent times that I thought were really good. And I think it diversified the thing, but they also fit in well. So that's a good sign, right? Sorry, I keep getting distracted staring at my kitten. I gotta pet her. I'm hanging on camera. Why doesn't she just lay down, like, right in front of me here? And then I could give her little scratches and play guitar and record a podcast. It's probably the best, most relaxing way ever to record a podcast. 5 feet away from your bedroom with a kitten. Within petting distance. Can always dream. I never have this guitar in standard tuning. It is right now, because we're doing the standard songs of the record. It feels weird to play these patterns on it, but it's also refreshing because this is such a great guitar, and I never get to play it like this. Don't get me wrong, I play an open C all the time, and I play this guitar a lot, but you know what I mean. Or do you know what I mean? Are you a musician? Who are you that watches this show, man? The last podcast has like 25 viewers. It's not zero, but who? Who's my audience? Let me know, man. I figure it's always just more me's. And by that I mean guitar players or home musicians, people writing songs, recording things. Or you like my songs. Yeah, fun guitar in any tuning. While I was in Princeton, I got the opportunity, or in Hedley, I should say, to play a friend of mine's guitars. And everybody I know has great guitars, man. I'm very fortunate to be friends with people with cool stuff. A 1970s Dean ML, a beautiful Les Paul Custom, my buddy's brand new ES335 I sold him. I played that when we did a little Scorpions. You know the one. But I don't have anybody in that band to play harmony solos with. Like, when I play with them, I just quickly grab his guitar, and his rhythm guitar player plays the thing, you know what I mean? So I always have to do, like, the whole... try to do the harmonies by one person. Which I wasn't... You can't do those harmonies by yourself, but you can at least go. And that usually gets people a little bit excited. So. I don't remember the run. I'm not supposed to play other people's music on a podcast. I have learned that because you can't afford to license it, and it's not the radio, it's a podcast. And with that, we're almost on the hour, so I'm going to call it. That is episode 4, finally. We haven't been glitched as far as I know. My headphones haven't distorted. The goopy echo sound hasn't distorted. We have it if we want, right? Come on, one last. The goop lasted the entire show. That hasn't happened in any of the failed attempts. And that in and of itself makes me believe this was not a failed attempt. So thank you for watching. If you have, do the things, like, comment, subscribe, click any of the things that are on screen right now, because I've learned how to do that. Promoting yourself is a thing, but trying to be creative and make all the stuff I want to make while also promoting myself is a thing that I'm not the best at just yet. So this has finally been episode 4. Episode 5 hopefully will be a little less apologetic and a little more on point of confidence and progress. So by episode 5, we're going to talk about the next 2 songs of guitars I'm going to do tomorrow, because it's a long weekend. I got a whole day off to crank through them. Maybe I'll even do 3 songs tomorrow, and then we'll get some strings going. There'll be a ton of new stuff to talk about with the new record. It's going to be out maybe at the end of this year, but at the very least, very early next year. I can say that with great certainty. Thank you for watching. Kevin is just so done. You can't see, but she's literally falling off. Shake paw? Good shake paw. Goodbye, and I will see you next week.